Hello YouTubers, I want to welcome you to another edition of Bargain Bin Gear. And hope you've been subscribing and liking the channel and watching the videos, because I often refer to older videos and it's an easy way to find them. Okay, so recently, as you'll know, I discovered the Boss Nextone amplifiers, both the artist and the stage. And the artist is the 80-watt version. It's a little bit bigger box too. And then the stage is a 40-watt version, a little smaller. Okay, but basically the same electronics. Okay, and it has 4 tube emulations, right? So you've got 6V6, 6L6, EL84, and EL34. Kind of like that Marshall tone. Okay, and I tell you what, they're so close to a tube amp it's hard to believe. Really. I mean, I've compared them to my tube amps, in fact. I've got quite a few. So the obvious choice, if you were to play out somewhere, you would take the nextones as opposed to the tube amps, which are much more fragile, much more expensive usually too. Okay, so that's the reasoning behind it. And the fact is, a lot less maintenance, right? You don't have to be worried about tubes breaking, going bad, that kind of thing, and replacing tubes, you know, every couple of years. And on top of that, they're a little bit lighter because they don't have those big heavy transformers, right? Now that doesn't mean they don't have any weight to them. They are kind of solid, if you like. You know, a little heavier. Not too bad though. And obviously these are from Boss, which also makes the Katana line. But don't be confused that these are like Katanas. They are not. Right? Katana is very much solid state, whereas the Boss is also solid state. Has an analog path, but depending on which setting you have it on, the 4 tube settings, depending on which setting you have, it also changes the power section, right? And it gives you the feel and sound of tubes, right? Which is pretty amazing, really. So anyway, I had one of the Boss Artist 80-watt. As you know, I like to play in stereo, so I like to have 2 amps that are similar. One for the left, one for the right channel. And I had 2 of the little Boss stages and liked them so much, and I already had an 80-watt Artist, so I went ahead and ordered another one. And I didn't buy it new, because it was kind of expensive, new. However, used, they averaged about $400, right? Whereas the stages were about $300, the smaller version. So for $400, you get a bigger box and an 80-watt amp. And I remember when I had one of the artists, I thought, well, it doesn't sound too much louder. However, I'm quite wrong about that, and I'll tell you why. Right here, I have a stage on the right side, the 40 watt, and on the left side, the new artist, right? Okay, and okay. So here I can hear pretty much both amps quite clearly, right? However, what I didn't tell you is that the artist on the left, the Boss Artist amp, the 80 watt amp, is at half power. I'm going to go ahead and turn it up to full power, which is the 80 watt. Okay, here we go. Here's the 80 watt. Full power on the left side. On the right side, I haven't made any changes to the stage amp, the 40 watt. I can barely hear the 40 watt at all because the 80 watt version is quite loud. Not a bad thing, really, if you need the volume, if you're playing a larger place than someone. Okay, so hold on. Okay, I've set it back to that half power. And you'll see that now I can hear the little stage amp and the Artist 80 watt. Delay on. So anyway, for $400, I thought, well, it's worthwhile just because I already had one, right? And they definitely work out great if I wanted to play somewhere that was kind of a bigger place and not bring tube amps. Right, so I'd bring these instead. And I think you'd be hard pressed to tell that it wasn't a tube amp. It's quite amazing. So anyway, it arrived, and we're going to have an unboxing here. There we go. Okay, there we go. I've got it unpacked here. Looks good. So far, it's got the cardboard cut out right here, which is kind of the sales banner. Oh, something here. A little piece of tape or something. You know what that is? Yeah. By the handle there. Okay, well, it looks great. Let me look at the grill. Pretty sharp. Wow, looks super. Alright. That pretty much concludes the unboxing, except I'm going to go ahead and take the box outside. Okay. Okay, I do notice that on top right here it has a little nick. I don't know what that's about. It's not that big a deal. You can hardly see it. But there it is. Okay. So remember there's 40 watts on one side. And I haven't yet set up the 280s in the room, left and right, which should be pretty neat. I'll get to that here in a second. Oops. Consider that kind of a sound check. So let me set them up in the room correctly, right? So that we don't have a mismatch between the stage and the artist. We'll just have the artist. This was just a test to make sure it's in good shape and everything, and it looks great. It's fine. And it has that little nick that's shown in the thing. Other than that, though, it's in perfect condition. Alright, so hold on, let me get that set up. Now I've got the two Boss Nextone artists, the 80 watters, one on the left, one on the right. And I have it turned up about halfway on each. And using the EL34 mode. And what I can tell you right away is it's loud. Too loud for this room. However, during the day, it seems to need more volume than in the evenings. But still, it's loud. It's very clear, though. still get the convincing kind of tube tone, but the louder it gets, the more solid statey it gets, in my opinion. Man, yeah, you'd have to be playing a decent-sized room to use this kind of amp, or if you're playing in a band with a drummer, that kind of thing. For this room, surprisingly, I think the half power is more appropriate. But the fact that it can do the full power and be quite loud, it is a good thing, because you can't take a 40 watt and turn it up to the 80 watt sound, basically. So I'm quite pleased with them, but I'll tell you what, I have quite a few amps, and I kind of have to set them up correctly. Yeah, very interesting. In fact, let me try one thing. There we go. Alright, let me try that. On my crossover, I turned down the input level. Let's see what we get here. Exactly what they said it would be. It'd be 80 watts instead of 40 watts, and the bigger cabinet as well. Quite impressed. So now I've got pretty much all the bases covered in the little stages, the little 40 watters for smaller rooms, and then the big boss ones, the artists, the 80 watters, right, for larger rooms. And I mean, I'll have to play around with the settings to get them exactly the way I like them. However, okay. So anyway, gives you an idea anyway. Now, if I were to tell you to, if he came up and he said, hey, what should I buy, the stage or the artist? I would definitely, probably, you know, I mean, if you're playing in a loud rock band, definitely the 80 watter, but anything else, the 40 watter is just fine, I think. You know, because they're very similar. Just volume-wise, there's a big difference. You know, yeah, so I guess it depends. You know, what size room you'd be playing mostly. You know? I mean, the 80 watters are definitely for rooms, you know, without a PA. You know, if you find yourself in that situation. Whereas the little stages are, you know, without PA, you know, like a little coffee house or a small room, you know. Maybe a large living room, that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm very pleased with the sound of them, you know. The inputs on the crossovers usually at halfway, but here I have almost 3/4 or 1/4 of the way, because they're loud amps, you know. Wow. I remember the difference is about $100 between the stage and the artist, so keep that in mind. And don't forget, of course, you can always take the larger boss and turn it down to half power. But they're definitely larger amps, you know, they're big amps. You know, very close to like the size of a deluxe reverb or even a classic 30. Whereas the stage is much smaller, closer to a Super Champ X2, right, or a Blues Junior, that kind of thing. Right, gives you an idea anyway. All right, well, I'm very pleased with the purchase. Quite frankly, I think I'm pretty well set as far as amps go, for the moment anyway. So we'll see. Here's a quick update for you. I think these are going to work out just fine. So that was a loop using the HX effects, which is fairly new to me, into the two amps, the two Boss Artists, and I'm getting used to them, like, you 5 minutes in, even though it's quite loud, they work great, just perfect. So I'm already sold on these Boss Nextone amps. Very much so. Alright, very good. I'll see you next time. Okay.